Today's video that I'm do is about the way I became, or how I became a truck driver, and a guy by the name of Fred Pizarro. This was back in 1995, maybe somewhere around May of '95. I was working at Sears in Fresno, off of Blackstone at the Manchester Center. I lived in the apartment buildings directly behind the center, behind the Manchester Center. So all I had to do is just cross the street and go into the parking lot to Sears, and that's what I was working at, down in the bottom, in the receiving area. One day I went to lunch with about 4 other guys I was working with. We were in the mall, went to go get something to eat, and we're sitting like in the center of the mall in this area, right next to a Radio Shack. And we're just sitting there hanging out. We had already ate our lunch, so we're just sitting there hanging out, waiting for the rest of our time to go by so we can go back to work. And about 4 or 5 guys come walking by. You know, I could tell right off the bat they were from Fresno. You know, as they're walking by, you know, they're dogging on me and shit. You know, I'm the only one there out of all these guys that was, you know, a gangbanger. The rest of the guys were just normal guys, you know. So they could tell, you know, that I wasn't from out there. So as they're walking by, you know, they're dogging on me and shit, you know. So, you know, as they're passing by, I just was staring at it and say, well, you know, I told one of us, what the fuck you keep looking at me for? So that's all it took. You know, he rushed me. We started getting into it. I mean, luckily that I had guys with me, so his guys didn't do shit, you know, but me and him were going at it. We're fighting right there in the middle of the mall. End up inside the Radio Shack, knocked over a bunch of their displays, and all of a sudden I can hear the security running in. So I ran out the door. There was a door to go out to the parking lot, and when I go to that door, I can see my apartment right there. So I run through the parking lot, but I go to the right, down the street, and there's an alley behind our apartment. So I ran down the alley because I didn't want them to see me run into my apartment. So I ran through the alley, came to my back door, and that was that. The next day I go to work, nothing happened. The following day after that, when I go to work, my boss, his name was Leo. I remember his name was Leo. Older guy, calls me to the office. And he says, hey, a couple of days ago, I was told that you left and didn't come back from lunch. I said, yeah, I didn't feel good, I went home. And he says, you didn't get into some kind of altercation in the mall? I was like, no, I just didn't feel good. And he's like, well, the people at Radio Shack showed me the video, and I can see it's you and they're fighting and shit, you know. So I was busted, you know, and I said, yeah, you know, I got into something over there, you know, whatever. And he's like, wait, you know what, Mike, you're good work and everything, but I'm gonna have to let you go, man, you know. Corporates, they're not having this shit, you know, so I gotta let you go. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I went home. The following Friday, I had to go see my parole officer, so I went down to see him, and I told him, I said, hey, check it out, man, you know, I'm not working at the mall anymore, at the Sears. I said, you know, is there anything you can do to help me out to go to school or to get a better job, you know? And so he's like, well, yeah, you know what? There's a program for guys that are under 21. He goes, you're not 21 yet, right? And I said, no, I'm 20. I'll be 21 in October. So he's like, okay, cool. I could probably get you into this program down over by, there's some classes over by Roding Park, right next to Roding Park, off of Kings Canyon. What you do is you go to this program. They teach you how to do job interviews. He goes, at first they're gonna help you get a job, a part-time job, so you have some money. They'll help you get a part-time job, and then certain days of the week you're gonna go to this program. You're gonna learn how to do job interviews, fill out applications, all these life skills. You know, they're gonna teach you all these things. You know, you're gonna do tests and shit like that. He goes, it takes about a month to go through the program. If you pass the program, there's a list of things that they'll pay for you to go to school for. They give you grants and all this other shit, you know, and you can go to school for something. And so he's like, "Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll do it." So he's like, "Okay, well," he gave me the information. I called the office over there and set up an appointment. I told them who I was and who my parole officer was, and so they said, "Okay." They gave me an appointment to come down there, and I had to talk to a guy named Fred Pizarro. So I made my appointment, and then I went down there. I caught like 2 or 3 buses to get over there from my house on the day that I had to be over there. And so I get there, and I walk into the office. There's a secretary there, and I say, "Hey, I told her who I was, and I said, I'm here to see Fred Pizarro." She said, "Okay, have a seat, and I'll call him, let him know you're here." So waiting 5-10 minutes, whatever, and some dude comes out, and it's been so long. It's 95, so we're talking about over 30 years ago, about 30 years. He comes out, and I think he had like a ponytail, but he looked like a biker type dude. Yeah, he was a Chicano guy, but like a biker, And actually, I think he might have had a fucking motorcycle. But anyways, he introduces himself to me. He's like, "Come on, let's go in the office." So we go into his office, and we're sitting down talking. And he's like, "Tell me about you. What about your crime and how you ended up on parole and all that stuff, So I told him, I got convicted of two assaults with the use of a firearm, and I did a couple years in the youth authority, and I told him that I paroled back to LA, but being paroled back to my old neighborhood was just getting me in more trouble. So, I was getting into too much shit down there, and I decided to come up to Fresno because I had family out there and try to get my shit together, And so he's like, "Okay." And so he started explaining everything about the program to me, and he was telling me like, same thing the parole officer told me. "You have to go to this program. It takes a month. We'll help you get a part-time job. Most likely it's going to be for the city because we work for the city, so we can get you a job with one of the delivery guys. All you're going to do is drive around the city with this guy who are in downtown, and you'll help him deliver office supplies to the city buildings. And we're going to pay you, a decent wage, so, it's a part-time job while you're going to this program. So you have a little bit of money. If you finish the program, we'll help you fill out the paperwork to get you some grants for school. And those grants, it's a Pell Grant. That money, you can keep that money for yourself. You don't have to pay it back. If not, we'll help you get loans and all this other stuff for the school for schooling if you need it. But we'll pay for most of these programs, these schools. We pay for it. The state will pay for it." So I was like, "Okay." And I remember I was kind of sitting like this, and he says, "What does that say on the back of your arms?" And I was like, I looked at my arms, and I was like, "This is Brown Pride." And he's like, "Oh." He goes, "What does that mean? What does that mean to you?" And I was just like, "Well, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud to be who I am. Proud of my people. And he says, "Is that right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "So then why are you committing the kind of crimes you're doing? Why are you trying to kill your own people? Why are you trying to kill your own people that you don't even know? If you're so proud of who you are." Like, he was kind of like shaming me for having the tattoo. And to be honest with you, I never thought of it that way. That was, that shit never crossed my mind. Something so simple had never crossed my mind. I didn't think about that. And I was just sitting there listening to him, and I didn't have nothing to say. I didn't have an answer for him, And so he's like, "You better really think long and hard, about what that tattoo really means." You know what I mean? And so, I was like, "Yeah, all right," And so we did we had to do the paperwork and all that stuff like that. And he's like, "I'll be giving you a call to let you know when to come back to the program, to start this program." So I said, "All right," it takes about a week or two. So I said, "No problem." So I left. And I'm walking down the side street that leads to Kings Canyon. And I started to really think about what it was that he had said, because like I said, it had never crossed my mind. And so I get into Kings Canyon, I make a left, and there was a little like mom and pop liquor store there. So I stopped in there real quick to get a soda and get some cigarettes. And I remember it was like an old liquor store. And I remember it being like dingy in there, like it just seemed like dusty, you know. The lights were kind of dim. It seemed like something you see in like an old movie or something, you know. Like a desert town, like a little store on the side of the road, you know. So I was walking in there, and as I'm walking down the aisle to the back to the refrigerators, I see this poster on the wall, way in the back, right next to the freezer. So I walk over there, I'm looking at it, and it was like the Aztec ones you see at every Mexican store, you know, where it's the Aztec dude on the hill holding the chick, you know. But this one, it didn't have a woman. It was the Aztec, but he was holding a Chicano dude that had like a flannel Pendleton type shirt on, some like khakis, and some like maybe some like, you know, kind of like Stacey Adams shoes. And he was dead, you know. And so it made me think about what he had just said. You know what I mean? When I came in there and I seen that poster, I was like, it really made me think about it, because the way I interpreted that poster was like our people saying, like, what have we become? That's the way that I looked at that poster. And so I was sitting there staring at it for a minute, because I was trying to, you know, I was reflecting on all this shit. And then I wanted to take it. I wanted to take it. I kind of want to ask at first, like, hey, can I have that poster? But I could tell it had been up there for a very long time. It wasn't nothing new. It had been up there for years. So I just left it alone. I just went and got my soda, went back, got my cigarettes, and got on the bus and went home. But it made me really reflect. And I think him and that poster is what made me really decide to start changing my point of view. You know, where I was like, man, you know, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, he's right in the way I interpreted that poster. You know, that's exactly the way it is. You know, so I mean, we're over here doing all this fucked up things to each other, pretty much for no fucking reason at all. You know, and so that started the cycle of me changing and trying to get away from all that street shit, as far as the gang shit and the gang banging shit, just to get away from that shit. Now, I'm not saying that I won't do something to somebody of my own people, but I mean, you gotta do something to me. I'm not out there trying to hurt nobody for no reason like I was before. I think around the time that I really started to think about it and stop doing that kind of shit, you know what I mean? Because I knew that was wrong. So anyways, you know, he called me and told me to come back. You know, he called me a couple days later, I think it was, and told me to come back on a certain day and that I was going to start this program. So I go back down there, and I had to be there, I think, like every other day. So every other day I had to be there, and the days I wasn't there, I had to work. And I had to work. Couldn't be calling off. If I missed a day of work, I got kicked out of the program. If I missed a day of the program, I got kicked out of the program. That's the way it was. They were real strict with it. There was about, I think we started with like 7 people in that program. And I think when we finished, there was only 5 of us. 2 people had got kicked out because they didn't show up to work or they didn't show up to the program. You could not miss one day, no matter what. They don't give a shit if you're sick, because they would say, like, hey, we need space for somebody that really, really wants it. And if you're sick, you'll still show up because you really, really want it. You know what I mean? If you can't get a ride, then you'll get on the bus 2-3 hours early and get here if you really want it. So that's the way that they saw it, and they were right. You know what I mean? So I would do that. I would get there an hour early every day. I would get to work an hour early every day, and I'm still that way now to this day. I always go to work an hour early to this day. I don't like to be late, I don't like missing work. Even if I'm sick, I'll go to work. I have cancer right now. I can't go to work because the doctors won't release me. But there's times where I feel like, fuck, man, maybe I just see if I can give me some light duty at my job, because I want to go back to work. I'm missing being at work, But so anyway, I go back and we started this program, and it was cool. They was teaching me things that I didn't know. How to do like an interview, how to sit up straight and look people in the face, eye to eye, and don't be like, I don't know. Nah, just be quick. Answer these fucking questions, which I already knew that part because I did that shit when I was getting parole, I learned that right away before I got parole. Like, this is what you got to do when you go for parole. So I already knew that part, but I never knew how to fill out job applications and all other shit. I didn't do that stuff before. I didn't know anything about that. And so they was teaching us all these things, these life skills. And then every other day we go to work, and so I'm getting a check every week for a couple $100, and just putting money in my pocket. So I ended up finishing the program. I finished the top of the fucking program. I finished the top of the program. But before all that, when we first started, they were saying, hey, check it out. They gave us a list. They said, all this stuff here, these are all schools for all these different things. You can pick one of these schools, and we pay for any one of these as long as you finish this program. And one of them was a trucking school called Truck Drivers Academy. It was on Shaw in the 99. And I remember when I was working at Sears, I was talking to a guy there when he was delivering. He worked for CF, Consolidated Freightways. He used to come every day and do deliveries there. So one day I was talking to him. I said, hey, bro, how much money do you make there? And like I said, this is 95. I want to say that he was making like $25 an hour, which was, in 95, that was a lot of money. That's pretty close to making like $40 an hour right now. So I was like, wow, that's a lot of money, because I think I was making like minimum wage. And he's like, yeah, you can make good money. He goes, but I'm a Teamster, which I knew nothing about Teamsters either. So he was like, yeah, I'm a Teamster. So he started explaining that shit to me. He says, well, if you ever get into trucking, you always want to try to get a Teamster job because you're going to get paid more money. So I kept that shit in mind. So when I seen that was on the list, it also reminded me of my mom's ex-boyfriend, who also, he had a truck driver's license, and he used to make decent money. So that's why I picked. I said, I'll be a truck driver. I'm single. At the time I was single. I was like, I can go take off and go cross country and make some money. And I ain't got to have a place to live. I can stay with a truck. So at the time I was living with my mom and my brother and my sister. So I can go off on my own and travel around. They made it seem so nice too. They made it seem so great, being a truck driver at first. So I was thinking all these things, like I can go all the way, go to New York, I can go to Florida, I can go to Maine, I can go, Montana, and I can sightsee and all this shit. It ain't like that. It's nothing like that when you become a truck driver. You don't stay in some place for too long. You're there and gone. But anyways, so I picked I want to be a truck driver. So he's like, okay, finish the program. So I did. I mean, I had my heart set on that shit. So I was there an hour early every single day at work, hour early every single day. And I finally finished the program, top of the program. After that, once the program was done, they helped me fill out some forms. And about, I want to say like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, something like that, I get a check in the mail for, I think it was maybe like $800, $900, some shit like that, for a Pell Grant, which doesn't have to be paid back. So I was working, plus I pocketed that money, and so I had a little bit of money on me now. I wasn't selling dope no more. I was trying to go legit. And that was the last time that I had saw Fred Pizarro. I've tried to find him, through Facebook, because I'd like to talk to him again. I mean, it's been years. I mean, the dude, he was on me. Actually, I'll tell you, one day, I almost got kicked out of the program. Almost. I became kind of lazy after like 2 weeks. And I was like, man, I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like going, you know. And I was like, man, I just think of an excuse, you know what I mean? And so I didn't even call. I didn't even call them and tell them. I was at home. I was laying down. I was sleeping on my mom's fucking floor in the living room. It's probably like 9, 10 in the morning. And I'm still asleep on the front floor. And somebody knocks on my door, and I get up, and I'm like, who's here, you know? So I open the door, and it's Fred Pizarro. And I'm standing there in my boxers. I'm like, what are you doing here? And he says, what do you mean, what am I doing here? Why aren't you at the program? Why aren't you at the office? And I was like, you know, I just didn't feel like it. You know, I didn't feel like it today, man, you know, to be honest. And he's like, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Take a shower real quick, get dressed. I'll be waiting outside. And I'm like, look at him, like, fuck, you didn't just hear me tell you I didn't want to go? But he was staring at me like, you got to go. So I was like, okay. So I went, took a shower, got dressed real quick, and jumped in the car. And he's like, you know that this could have got you kicked out if I didn't come down here? You know, I left everybody else with another person out to take care of everything, to show them what I should be showing them. I came over here to pick you up because, you know, I think that, you know, you're good for the program. You know, I mean, this program is good for you. Yeah, I don't have to come pick you up. I don't have to help you. I don't, you know, I haven't done this for anybody else, but I'm doing it for you. He goes, I had to drive all the way out here because I live far from where the office was at. Like I said, I had to take like 3 buses to get there. So he's like, don't do it again, because next time I won't come pick you up. I'm just picking you up this time, man, because I want you to pass. I want you to get your shit together. So he's like, give me your word that you won't do this shit again. So I said, all right, man, I give you my word. I won't do it again. And I didn't. Like I said, I finished the classes. And then after the classes were done, you know, he took me down to the school. After the grants and all that shit came through, he took me down to the school off a shelf, and he signed me up. And that was the last time I saw him. That was the last day that I saw Fred Pizarro. So like I said, I tried to find him just to talk to him, just to let him know after all these years, you know, since 1995, I'm still here, and I'm still doing the same shit. I'm still a truck driver. I've been a truck driver all these years, you know. So the program that he was running, it helped. It helped me. I don't know what happened with the other kids that were there, but it helped me, you know. So I started truck driving school in June of 1995. It's a 4-month-long school called Truck Drivers Academy. For the first 2 months, you didn't even go to the trucks. For 2 months, you sat in the classroom every day, Monday through Friday, from, I want to say it was like 8 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon. And there was a book as thick as a phone book. You go through the whole book. There was quizzes and all kinds of shit you had to take. I mean, they explained every single thing about trucking to you. They explained every single thing about the truck to you. Things that you really didn't even need to know when you went to the DMV to do your test. I mean, they got really into detail on shit. Different truck parts and stuff like that, you know. So for 2 months we sat in this classroom, and then finally after 2 months we were able to go out into the trucks and start to learn how to drive them. So it took 4 months. We ended up going down to the DMV afterwards. I ended up passing that with a 99%. I graduated top of that class of all the people that were in that class, because it was a bunch of people there. It wasn't just the kids. It wasn't people from that program that I was in. It was just regular, everyday people that were there. So it was probably like 20 of us in the class. A lot of people that were older than me. I was only 20 years old. I wasn't even allowed to leave the state as a truck driver. I had to stay in California. So once I passed trucking school, which was in September, I was still 20 years old. I couldn't really get a truck driver job for another month because I had to be 21 in order to leave the state. Nobody was going to hire me at 20 years old to do local work because I had no experience. And the insurance companies would not allow them to hire me. So I had to wait 1 month once I graduated from the school to be able to sign up for a company and go work cross country. Because I wasn't able to, back then you could not get a local job. As a truck driver, you know, there was no local jobs. You had to have, I want to say back then, most companies were requiring you to have 5 years experience to be a local driver. Other than that, you had to go long haul for at least 5 years, which I didn't give a shit because I was single. So I said, I'll go long haul. And so I finished that. Like I said, I finished with 99%, head of the class, head of everybody else. And I signed up for a company called Donco out of Oklahoma City. And they sent me a bus ticket. I went, well, once I turned 21, I did the paperwork, sent it to them. They hired me, sent me a bus ticket to Oklahoma. And I got on that bus November 5th, 1995. Took me a day and a half to get to Oklahoma. And that was my first trucking job, was working for a company called Donco, doing 48 states. So I used to travel all over the place. But that's another story. I mean, it's, like I said, you know, it's not like what you think though. It's not like what people think. You go out there and you get to sightsee and all that shit. You don't. And most of the time you're traveling at night anyway. You get to a location, drop your load, it's at night, go back to sleep, get up in the morning, pick up another load, and you're gone. There's no time to wait, there's no time to sightsee, no time to be fishing, no lakes, no shit like that. You ain't got time to do none of that. You gotta constantly be moving. As long as the wheels are rolling, you're making money. If they're not, you ain't making shit. So you gotta constantly be moving. So trucking is not for everybody, especially long haul trucking. But yeah, that's the way that I became a truck driver, and that's the story of Fred Pizarro. And like I said, I tried to contact that guy. I don't know if he's still around, if he's still alive. I mean, he should be. He wasn't really that old when I met him. He was probably in his early 40s. So shit. I mean, if he was in his early 40s, he's got to be in his early 70s now. Anyways, if anybody knows who Fred Pizarro and Fresno is, should let me know. I would really like to get in contact with him again. But anyways, that's the story of how I became a truck driver, and the man that helped me become a truck driver and get my shit together.